Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta be honest with you. I know that half of the appeal of these videos is you guys like how sometimes I'll just pepper in these weird little jokes while I talk about your favorite NBA players or your favorite topics. I'm weirdly passionate about what we're going to be talking about today, so it's just been difficult for me to spin it in a funny way. Not that there's not humor inside of what we're talking about. It's just I actually kind of want to try to be analytical today, so you'll have to bear with me. However, I would be remiss if I didn't include at least something funny. So let's do that. You guys always ask me, Nick, will you close this door? Will you please close this closet door? It's driving me insane. No. And you know why I'm not going to? Because I'm not getting my security deposit back. This thing is just straight up broken. The second thing is, if you are new to the channel and you want to be the first person to ever tell me that I look like Adam Morrison or Joakim Noah or Jack Black or Adam DeMamp or Steven Adams or Jason Momoa, be sure to leave a comment and subscribe. All right, now we all know, if you look at the 2018 NBA draft, it is included, it's star-studded. Like, we're going to look back and be like, woo! Woo! It included, but is not limited to, the likes of Trae Young, Luka Doncic, and DeAndre Ayton. And somewhere right in the middle was Marvin Bagley. Now, I have no problems with Marvin Bagley. You at home, you probably have no issues with, I don't think you probably don't have any issues with Marvin Bagley unless you're this. Now, the problems with Marvin Bagley that Kings fans have are that, well, okay, the one that didn't help is it was literally, as of this recording, like 3 days ago, that Marvin Bagley liked a tweet where someone was like, we need to get Marvin out of Sacramento. And if it wasn't the first, it was one of the first times that he himself liked to tweet like that, because it's always his dad or somebody in his camp where he's like, this propaganda, we need to get Marvin out of Sacramento. It's a little bit annoying to me because if there's anybody who's trying to maximize the potential of Marvin Bagley, I feel like it's the Kings fan. How true is that, though? How true really is that? Because it feels like if there's any coach in the league who has no idea what to do with Marvin Bagley, it's probably Luke Walton, because it just feels like he's, how do I articulate this? For the offensive versatility that Marvin Bagley possesses, it almost feels like Luke Walton condemns him for that and relegates him into a role where he's just not allowed to do the things that we know that he can do, or is allowed to work on the things that we know he needs to refine. Like all the things that made Marvin Bagley a really interesting prospect coming into the draft. He was a shot blocker. He was a really athletic defender. He was versatile. He could defend like 1 through 5, basically. I don't know how true that was, but he could defend multiple positions, and his shooting as well. And he gets to the NBA, and it's like he's super quick. He is still super, super quick. He's super athletic. He can face up. He can put the ball on the floor, and he can get to the rim with ease. But it almost feels like there's just this weird plateau that he's hit, and I don't quite understand why. That's a lie. I know exactly why that is. It's because out of the 206 games that he's been eligible to play, he's missed like half of them basically for some inexplicable reason, from some injury that he's going to suffer at some point over the duration of a season. If it's not 1, if it's not 2, it's probably 3. Like he had you know what was really, really weird? Something happened with the Kings this season that was really, really weird. Do you know what was really, really weird? I believe this was the first year that Bagley's camp was like very public about, we need to get Marvin out of Sacramento. And then he suffers, it was a hand injury. He broke his hand, and Monty McNair, the newly hired Kings general manager, who did a pretty iffy job I think he did okay. The DeLon Wright trade to this day, mate, thanks as a Detroit fan. Thanks for the draft capital. But as a Kings fan, that was the most lateral move I'd ever seen in my life. Whatever, that's not what this video is about. Bagley breaks his hand, and McNair is like, hey, you can rehabilitate away from the team. Go to Phoenix. You know, we'll just travel without you, and it's fine. Now, this proved to be incredibly divisive for Kings fans, because if my memory isn't failing me, and I feel like more often than not it does, there were essentially 2 schools of thought here. The first one was, wow, impressed. Sacramento is willing to put the best interests of Marvin Bagley at hand and be like, if you want to be away from the team while we travel, that's totally fine. Go be with your family. Go get your body right. Like, they were kind of in a playoff push. Well, they thought that they were, and they weren't. But they were like, just go get your body right. We'll be here when you're done. Now, the other side, and I remember thinking about it at the time, and I started to lean a little bit more towards this one, was Sacramento was in that aforementioned playoff push. We are, of course, using air quotes because Sacramento. They were like, no, this is a brotherhood. This is a fraternity. You should live and die with your family. I feel like you should probably be with this team, even though you are rehabilitating. And it just feels like that this coddling and this babying of their players is what got Sacramento into this mess that they're in the first place. Not just with Bagley specifically, but over the last almost 2 decades of just being the Kings, basically. So like I mentioned earlier, he just seems to have reached this weird plateau where I just don't know what's going to happen. And like, I'm going to liken it. I'm going to use a comparison, and I'm going to use this as loosely as I can. Think of it in principle. Think about Markelle Fultz. Markelle Fultz is the first pick in the draft. His trainer messes up his shot. All these factors go into it. He can't raise his arms above his shoulders. Sixers fans are just all over this guy. He's a boss. This guy's terrible. And we all knew in the back of our heads, this guy, he just needs a change of scenery. Markelle Fultz needs to be somewhere else. Now, once he was finally traded to Orlando in exchange for Jonathan Simmons, we all kind of stripped the labels on Markelle Fultz that we had before, and we had all kind of arrived to this conclusion already, but we were like, we just want to see him be something. We want to see any form of success whatsoever for Markelle Fultz. So once you take the context out of it, that he was the number one pick, who was selected after him, the whole Jason Tatum trade, all that stuff, once you strip all those labels, you essentially have a new player. You have a fresh start. And I just can't help but think that's exactly what Marvin Bagley needs right now, because we're heading towards this territory where I think he only has 1 year left on his deal. Talk about the Kings and drafting these bigs who definitely have some sort of a potential, and then they just can't really seem to stay healthy, and then they're just like, past the rookie contract, we're good. Talking, of course, about Harry Giles. And no, I'm not putting them in the same paradigm. It's just, speaking comparatively. Now, again, the reason that this is so important is because Kings fans are always going to look at Marvin Bagley as the guy who's not Luka Doncic. Like, basically, that's it. And I got to be honest for a second. I don't want to sound like that guy. I've had conversations with two people who are in the know about, like, what happened there. And I've heard one person say that whole Vlade hated Luka's dad thing, that wasn't true. That's a bunch of nonsense. That's not why they didn't pick Luka. And I also heard from somebody that is exactly why it happened, and that is completely true. So I don't know what to believe. Make of it what you will. All that matters is that the Kings didn't end up with Luka Doncic, and they have Marvin Bagley, and Kings fans disparage him for it. And they're never going to move on from it. They're never going to move on from the reality that their team could be something else. Their franchise could have been rocketed to the moon if they had Luka, but instead they have Marvin Bagley, a guy who again can't stay healthy defensively. People seem to think that Richaun Holmes impeded the ability for Bagley to grow because of his emergent. Well, Richaun Holmes has always been awesome. People forgot about how good he was in Phoenix, and then he goes to Sacramento. I'm glad people finally appreciate Richaun Holmes as a rim protector and as an offensive post threat. But I never really bought into that because I just felt like everything that Richaun Holmes was really, really good at, Marvin Bagley was the opposite. And I'm not talking about marginal differences. Richaun Holmes was just objectively like a better defender than Marvin Bagley, and it wasn't particularly close. So anyway, sorry, that little sidebar is done. Sorry about that. I just feel like we have to arrive at this point, if you are Sacramento, if you're a Kings fan, if you are Marvin Bagley, where I wonder how salvageable this situation is, because he very clearly doesn't want to be with the Kings anymore. His family very clearly doesn't want to be in Sacramento anymore. And the fans don't want him either. Like, I know that there are pockets of Kings fans that are like, no, I love Marvin Bagley. I still want him to be good. And I appreciate you. Can I shake your hand? Will you reach your hand out really quick? We're shaking hands. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you. To the other Kings fans, unfortunately, I do understand. And when you see a player of that quote-unquote stature, excuse me, who doesn't want to be on your team anymore, naturally, you're not going to be like, yeah, I understand. It's okay. I get it. The Kings have something going for them right now, and I know Jason Jones wrote in The Athletic that it was around March that the Kings had tried to explore trade options for Marvin Bagley, and all they could get in return was second-round picks and bad contracts. And I also want to throw out there, I have to, as a Pistons fan, I got to do this. Monty McNair called Troy Weaver and was like, hey, straight up, hey, Troy, we'll give you Marvin Bagley. Can we have Sadiq Bey? Troy Weaver hung up the phone. That is a real thing that happened. Now, I don't know if that's exactly how it happened, but that is how I choose to imagine it. Will the Kings be worse for the wear if they get some dumpster trade package? You're not going to get Ben Simmons for Marvin Bagley. I don't think. I love the idea of Ben Simmons in Sacramento. You're not getting. That's not going to happen. So whatever trade packages you think you can conjure up. Also, the whole Buddy Hield thing, we're not going to get into Buddy Hield today. That's another guy that Luke Walton I just don't think is getting, he's not maximizing the potential of Buddy Hield because there's some weird relationship thing there, and it's a mess. But I'm so sorry, Kings fans. You guys really do deserve better. I would want Marvin Bagley on my basketball team. I just, well, I got to go.